Welcome to another explainer where we take complex HR concepts and make them crystal clear. Today, we're tearing down the walls and looking at how retail jobs are structured from the absolute ground up. Honestly, whether you're stepping onto a shop floor for the very first time or you're an HR manager trying to optimize your entire workforce, understanding the literal blueprint of a job is absolutely crucial to your success. Here's our roadmap for the day. We're going to cover 1. Decoding the retail job. 2. The anatomy of job analysis. 3. Methods of job analysis. 4. Shaping work via job design. And finally, 5. Redesigning for motivated employees. Let's dive right in. Kicking things off with Section 1, Decoding the Retail Job, the Blueprint. This is where the foundation of our entire process is poured. So, job analysis. It's not just a boring checklist of daily tasks. It's the whole shebang. It requires analyzing the entire environment. In a retail setting, this means you're evaluating the shop floor, the pace, the noise levels, the customer interactions, basically everything, to figure out what actually makes an employee successful. It analyzes both the work content of the job and the job content of the work. And, it is the absolute starting point for all HR decisions. Mostly because getting this analysis wrong is a one-way ticket to high turnover and lost revenue.
Why does this matter? Well, this foundational data is the lifeblood of the entire retail ecosystem. Think about it. It dictates manpower planning, so deciding exactly how many floor staff you actually need on a Tuesday versus a Saturday. It guides recruitment to help you find the absolute perfect merchandise sorters. It ensures employees' safety, helps fix fair compensation, and gives management a standardized, fair way to measure an employee's success during performance appraisals. It's literally the core data behind the entire employee lifecycle.
Moving right along to Section 2, Anatomy of Job Analysis, the key components. So what exactly do we get from all this data gathering? We end up with a very clear distinction between two main documents. First, the job description. This focuses entirely on the environment and the duties of the role, the what and the where. Then, on the other hand, you have the job specification. This outlines the human element, the who. It dictates the personal, mental, and social capabilities a candidate has to bring to the table. We're talking about things like conversational ability, flexibility, and the emotional intelligence you absolutely need to handle customer complaints on a crazy busy weekend. And to finish off the anatomy, we've got job evaluation. Kimball and Kimball hit the nail on the head here. This is the crucial step of assigning an actual monetary value to the job. It's vital for reducing inequalities and maintaining harmony on the floor. Because of this standardization, if a salesperson steps in to fill a shift at the register, they get a specific cashiering allowance for that day. It assigns fair worth to the actual duties performed. Section 3, Methods of Job Analysis, the surveying tools. How do HR managers actually get this intel out on the floor? HR professionals mostly use three main tools for this. First up is observation. This is exactly what it sounds like. An analyst directly watches an employee on the shop floor, maybe using something called the critical incidents technique to jot down highly effective behaviors. Second is the interview method, where you literally just talk directly to employees and their supervisors. And third is the questionnaire, sending out structured forms to rate task frequency and difficulty. Now, each has its pros and cons, right? Questionnaires are super comprehensive but take forever, while observation is real life, but, you can't exactly observe mental processes like decision-making. Before we move on to the building phase, I want you to pause and think about this for a second. Consider the human element here. Might an employee subconsciously or even intentionally alter their answers in a face-to-face interview to protect their own interests, compared to just being silently observed from a distance? It's a constant balancing act for HR to get the truest possible picture of a job candidate. All right, on to Section 4, Shaping Work via Job Design, the remodel. We have our blueprint. Now it's time to actually start construction. Michael Armstrong lays it out perfectly right here. Job design is the systematic attempt to integrate the work content with the needs of both the employee and the organization. It isn't just about what tasks need doing. It's about how those tasks are organized into a meaningful unit of work that actually attracts and, more importantly, retains a highly motivated workforce. Since HR is basically acting as the organizational architect, they have to juggle three really critical factors. Organizational factors look at the actual workflow and the tasks themselves. Environmental factors take into account the social expectations and the actual abilities of the available workforce. But honestly, the most important ones are the behavioral factors. These address the human need for feedback, the autonomy to make decisions, and the variety required to prevent absolute mind-numbing boredom on the job. Which brings us to Section 5, Redesigning for Motivated Employees, Making the Perfect Role. This is the most dynamic part of the explainer. We're going to look at how managers actively tweak these jobs to cure that boredom and significantly boost motivation. The first method is job rotation. A really fantastic example of this in organized retail is when category managers are shuffled on a rotational basis from one department to another. The jobs themselves, they remain completely unchanged. But the employee who is shifting between them gets to learn new techniques, completely break up the monotony of their daily routine, and ultimately become a multi-category expert. It's also a great way to prepare lower-level employees to eventually step up and replace someone at a higher level. Now, this next part is absolutely crucial. We need to contrast enlargement versus enrichment. Job enlargement is strictly horizontal. It expands the scope of a job by adding more tasks of the exact same skill level. Think of a restaurant worker who is suddenly asked to dust tables, wash dishes, and run food. It definitely keeps them busy, but critics argue it's really just aggregating several boring jobs into one big boring job. Job enrichment, however, is vertical. It truly empowers an employee by giving them more control over their work, decentralizing decision-making, and focusing on results rather than rigid step-by-step procedures. Enrichment is what fulfills that deep psychological need for growth, achievement, and real advancement. On the flip side, what if a job is currently way too complex, or designers feel the roles just aren't specialized enough? Well, that's where management might use job simplification. This involves taking those larger, complex tasks and breaking them down into tiny subparts, ensuring high specialization and maximum efficiency for each individual worker. So, I want to leave you with a real, hard question about your own day-to-day. Take a look at your own job. Are you experiencing genuine job enrichment that actually empowers you? Or are you just facing job enlargement cleverly disguised as growth? Because understanding these HR blueprints, really knowing the difference between simply doing more tasks versus gaining actual autonomy, is the very first step to mastering your professional landscape. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep analyzing your environment.